It's no breaking story that there's a horrific crime wave in Chicago because, well, that's been the daily story for about 20 years now. But what is making headlines is what the mayor said yesterday. He's very upset. He's very upset. Not at the criminals. No, no, no. At people in the media using the wrong kind of language to describe these young children. Watch.
That's not appropriate. We're not talking about mob actions. I didn't say that.
What happened Sunday?
Okay, hold on a second, okay? Respectfully, these large gatherings, just hold on a second, y'all. I promise you, we have time to talk. It's important that we speak of these dynamics in an appropriate way. This is not to obfuscate what is actually taking place.
This was the scene near Roosevelt and Canal Sunday night. Groups looted a convenience store. More than 36 teenagers were arrested, along with a 12-year-old and at least one 20.
You know, how dare you call that a mob? That's just a large gathering of children. Joining us right now, retired NYPD detective and now host of the Rob O'Donnell Show on WILK in Pennsylvania. He's Rob O'Donnell. Well, Rob, that's a way to get tough on crime. You know, I'm thinking all of those young youth who went out and tore up Chicago and stole whatever they want and resisted arrest and, you know, destroyed automobiles. And I think now that they know they're not going to be called a mob by the mayor, they're just going to stay home and play Xbox, right?
Large gatherings that are simply misunderstood. It's amazing how name calling or labeling criminals is bad when everyone else does it, but you know, Democrats and Democrat leaders can call all the names they want when it suits them.
Oh yes, well, there's that. But this is not unique to Chicago. I mean, we see that from the mayor of Washington, D.C. all the time. We see it in New York with Eric Adams. It was even worse with Eric Adams' predecessor, Bill de Blasio. This whole, you know, we need to show compassion to the criminals, otherwise they might do something destructive.
Yeah, you know, back in the day, in the late 80s, early 90s, they were called wolf pack. And then that was deemed, you know, disparaging to the youth that are committing these crimes. And now the same thing, they're just rehashing, recirculating the same talking points, but what we have is an increase in crime. So that they're not addressing, that they're failing to address. They're negligent in that fact. But let's talk about the terminology, because that'll change a lot of things.
So now you were a cop in New York when David Dinkins was there, and it got so bad that New Yorkers elected a Republican. That's how bad it got. And almost immediately you saw the policies that Rudy Giuliani put in place with the team that he had around him, and crime went down. What were those policies? What's the real way to go into a city that is mired in crime and actually turn things around? Because it can be done.
Well, it can be done in the blueprint sitting in a drawer in Chicago, in New York, in Baltimore, in St. Louis. The plan is in there, gathering dust. They just refuse to take it out. We've done it. We've proven it's true. It's quality of life offenses. It's handling the small things. It's omnipresence. It's proactive policing. They know the solution to these issues. They just won't bring them out. But you know what happened, and you brought up a good point with Dinkins, the transition from Dinkins to Giuliani. The reason the police were allowed to be the police is because the people in the inner city said enough's enough. We cannot live here. It is intolerable. And you're starting to see that now in these cities. You're seeing, you know, the NAACP in certain cities saying we need more police now because it's gotten so bad. And it's just, that's what's starting to roll in now. But if you remember for the years that you and I have talked about this, I always said for every year you have a defund the police movement, this anti-police regiment, it's going to take 3 or 4 years to correct that, because now you have a recruitment problem, you have a retention problem, you've lost your best and most experienced officers. And to rebuild that, police departments are lowering their standards, which is just going to snowball this effect of bad incidents out in the street.
Right.
And it's they're playing catch up now, and they have years to catch up.
Yeah, 2 points you just made there that I want to follow up on. The first is that it reached the point where the people in the inner city said enough is enough. And the majority of those people in the inner city are people of color, the Hispanic community and the black community. And we're seeing it in real time here in Oakland. Oakland, California, homicide rate up by 80%. Assaults 40%, robberies 20%, car break-ins 90%, vehicle thefts up 100%, and it's reached the point now where the Oakland NAACP has said, bring us more cops. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just called out a New York State senator on Twitter here in New York City. because she was complaining about police holding up the subway because there was police activity at the next station. And my response to that was, well, it's up 48% in the past 2 years in the transit system in New York City. And here's a state senator who's from Brooklyn, represents Brooklyn, is a very big socialist, anti-police, persona, complaining about her train not running on time, rather than the police doing a proper investigation to catch the criminals of whatever police incident there was at that station.
Yeah. And by the way, while you're talking about New York, we see these stories every single day there where you've got more illegal immigrants that are there in New York City sleeping on the sidewalks because there's no more room for them. They're thinking of building a tent city in Central Park, like Hooverville. I guess we should call it Bidenville, realistically. And it's Democrat elected officials who are saying enough is enough, that this has to stop. Is this how things change, that finally this isn't a party issue anymore?
They will only change when enough of the public, enough of the people in the inner cities, enough of people of all demographics say enough is enough. It just can't be us telling them constantly what you're doing is not working. It can't be showing the crime stats because they're simply manipulating crime stats. It has to be the people in the inner cities finally banging down the doors of their city hall, their town halls, their school board meetings, anywhere they can talk about crime that's going on in their communities and say enough's enough, and that's when they'll start to listen.
Also, Rob, you've laid out a lot of the reasons for this: ineffective elected officials, cops deciding to leave the cities and take jobs elsewhere, lack of recruitment, lowering standards. How much do you hear from your former colleagues, police officers, about the dynamic of these prosecutors? Alvin Bragg in New York, for example, who, even if the cops do their job right, even if they get the guy and they arrest him, he's just going to be out again because of criminal justice reform, because you've got a DA who's just ignoring the law.
Well, what you're seeing is this judicial revolving door that we've also talked about, and that's what they've done. They've taken over the mayorships, and they've seen that that's fluctuated. But they've seen if they take over district attorneys, state's attorney's office, and they rid their offices of proactive prosecutors, it's another years in the making to fix that. So a judicial revolving door is troublesome, but police officers are still out there day in and day out making the arrest. So what do you have now? You have the prosecuting office, especially in New York City, especially in Manhattan, dropping the charges. So now the police lawfully arrested somebody where the DA drops the charges, and now that person sues the city and the police department and that officer for false arrest because, of course, the DA dropped the charges, so there were no charges.
Yeah.
And the city is settling, rewarding these people for that. And then you're putting these officers in the city and the taxpayer through that as well. And that's their backdoor. Okay, officers, you're going to continue to arrest people and enforce the laws that the elected legislator voted into the legal system.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to backdoor you and shut you out that way.
On our way out here, we've only got 30 seconds. Could you give us a quick update on all those social workers who were going to be hired when we rethink policing in our major cities? How effective are those social workers now?
We're seeing the rise in crime everywhere. We're not seeing them. The homeless has increased. The illegal immigration homeless has increased in our cities. Crime is increasing in our cities. So let the public tell us.
Yeah. But don't worry, everybody, because when you go to your local drugstore and you need to buy some deodorant or maybe some toothpaste, it's all behind lock and key and it's caged up, and you got to get somebody over there to get it. So everything's fine. Our urban centers are absolutely functional. Rob O'Donnell, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
It's like we all live in New York now, right? We used to love New York. You used to go to New York. Now New York's come right to your neighborhood. It's lovely. But without the Broadway show tunes, that's a problem. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.